Hello and welcome to the first episode of Reef TV. Reef TV is a program that will explore all aspects of the saltwater aquarium hobby. I'm your host, Maurice Kirby. Throughout this series, we'll be visiting with reef keepers, look at their aquariums, examine their systems, and learn more about their fish and corals. Whether you're an advanced reef keeper, you're just starting out, or you have a mild curiosity, Reef TV promises to be interesting to everyone. We're going to talk to our experts about how to maintain a beautiful coral reef aquarium. We'll talk about all different kinds of lighting, mechanical systems and filtration. We'll talk about saltwater aquarium chemistry and all kinds of corals and fish. Now let's get started. Hi, Chuck.
How's it going, Mo?
It's going great. Thanks for having us into your house.
Thanks for coming by.
This is quite a tank you've got going here.
Thanks, Mo. It's a lot of work, but it's definitely worth it.
And I understand some of your fish bred last night?
Yes, I have 2 false picrural clowns living in this anemone that breed every 14 days, and there's some freshly hatched clownfish eggs under the anemone.
Amazing, amazing. So we have a new fish and a new coral to introduce today. What type of fish do you have?
It's a hybrid goby.
And the coral?
And the coral is an Aquarium millipora.
Fantastic. Why'd you select that type of fish?
The fish actually is a cleaner fish. It acts in a similar manner to the cleaner shrimp. It helps maintain the health of the fish. So it'll eat parasites right off the fish? That's right. And why'd you select that type of coral? Well, my favorite corals are SPS, and of that class, my favorite is the Aquarium millipora species. Do you like the milliporas? Love milliporas. Oh, great. Thanks for all your help today, Chuck. We're going to see you a bit later on. We're going to get started with the acclimation. So our first thing to do is find Joe Scavo and get this ball rolling. Joe, you got to see this tank.
Wow. That is something else, huh?
Yeah, that's pretty impressive.
Monstrous.
This is Joe Scavo. He's our livestock expert. Joe, you've been a reef keeper for how long?
Roughly 5 years, Mo.
And about how many gallons of water do you have used?
Gosh. I have close to 600 gallons of marine aquarium in my house.
How many tanks is that?
It's probably divided up, say 6 tanks, actually.
A little bit of everything?
Yeah, a little bit of everything.
Okay, great. Well, show us what we have here.
Well, today we got a delivery from ORA down in Florida, and what we have is a cleaner goby as well as a Aquarium millipora that they sent out, which is a small polyp stony coral.
Great. Well, let's get it open.
Absolutely.
Wow, box within a box here.
Yeah, as you can see, their packing is pretty much impeccable.
What's this?
This right here is a heat pack to maintain the temperature of the water, basically, so the fish and the coral do not stress.
Okay.
So first off, here we have the hybrid cleaner goby, which is a great little fish.
A unique crossbreed from ORA of a yellow line and neon goby.
The second thing we're going to introduce today is an Aquarium millipora.
Great.
This beautiful, beautiful specimen that's been aquacultured by ORA. As you can see, the purple and blues are in it. You'll really see it under the lights. It's just really incredible.
Okay, so what do we do?
Well, the first thing I'd like to do is bring the temperature up in the bags to equalize with the temperature in the tank.
Okay,
so what I propose to do is float these guys in the tank to equalize the temperature.
Just float them in the tank?
Absolutely.
All right. Open them up.
All right, this process is probably going to take all of, say, 10 to 15 minutes, Mo.
All right, 10 or 15 minutes. Well, looks like I've got 10 to 15 minutes on my hands. Why don't I go find Marvin Paramore and we'll talk about lighting. Thanks, Joe.
Hey, no problem, Mo. We'll catch you in a bit.
All right. I found him. Hey, Marvin.
Hey, Mo.
This is Marvin Paramore of New England Reef. Marvin's an experienced reef keeper and a lighting expert. Marvin, enlighten us.
Good one, Mo.
So what can you tell us about Chuck's lights?
Well, Chuck's lights are pretty amazing, as evidenced by the health of his corals and the growth that he's got. Amazing stuff. He's running all E-line ballasts, and he's running PFO pendants. And the 2 lights in the center are 400 watts, and they're flanked by a pair of 250s on each side.
That's a lot of watts.
That's a lot of watts, Mo, but it's a huge tank, too. Needs all that light.
So Chuck has metal halides. What are they?
Well, metal halides are a light that simulates the natural daylight that's out on the reef, which is what our corals need in order to grow properly in a reef tank. And on Chuck's tank, I mentioned the pair of 250 watt bulbs on either side of his 400s. Well, this is what he has on either side of the 400s. It's a double-ended 250 watt PFO pendant, and they're 10,000 Kelvin rating.
Okay.
On the 400s, because the 400s don't come in double-ended like that, they come in with a bulb similar to this one right here. This is a 400 watt. It is a huge bulb, and again, it's 10K.
That's a lot of power. How many watts does Chuck have?
It is, Mo, a lot of power, 1,800 watts. Draws a lot of electricity, makes a big electric bill, and the fixtures themselves are expensive.
You've mentioned Kelvin a couple times. Can you talk a little bit about that?
The K rating is Kelvin temperature. K stands for Kelvin, and it's a method of measuring the different colors in the spectrum of lighting that comes in that. 6,500 Kelvin is a little bit more yellow, and when you go up higher, say a 10K like Chuck's, now it's got a little bit more blue, which is what the reefs really like, what the corals really like, is that blue spectrum.
Okay, so what does something like this run for?
Well, metal halide lighting can run anywhere from a couple of $100 for a setup up into several $1,000s for a setup. The bulbs themselves can run $80 to $150 just for the bulb.
All right, so if you don't have all that kind of resource, is there another way that you can get into this hobby and grow corals and enjoy it?
There is, Mo. There are a couple of different things that you can do, and it involves fluorescent lighting. You have the VHOs, which is an acronym for very high output, and you also have the PCs, which are power compact bulbs.
Okay.
And we have a couple of examples here today. The power compacts can be small, like this one.
And that's a single end, just plugs into a light?
Just plugs into a regular light fixture. This one actually is a 6,500K 10 watt. Great for a nano tank, something small if you have limited resources.
Okay.
Another one that we have, and again this is a power compact, and this bulb is a 55 watt ultra actinic, so this will give you the blue spectrum, the actinic.
Nice, and these will grow corals for people?
These will grow corals, and they're a great bulb with low power consumption. The other thing that we have are the T8 and a T12 fluorescents. Now these are VHOs, very high output. They're much better suited to a larger tank, say a 75-gallon 4-foot tank. This bulb is fantastic for that, and again it comes with the actinics or different Kelvin ratings, 10K, 6,500K. Here is a T8, a little bit smaller bulb. This one happens to be a 24-inch actinic and is again good for a small tank, say 20-gallon. Perfect for that. Inexpensive, a great place for a guy to get started.
Okay. And on that tank behind you, what's running back there?
What we have here is a power compact. Again, we showed you the bulbs. Now this is a fixture, very attractive, not too much money.
Yeah, beautiful.
To get started. You can see this has a combination bulb. Each bulb is half actinic and half daylight, so it's called a 50-50.
Okay. You mentioned actinic a couple of times. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Actinics are in the blue spectrum. Now remember I mentioned a 65K, that's basically a daylight bulb, all spectrums. An actinic bulb is much more blue, and it runs up to about the 20K range, 20,000 Kelvin range.
It looks like from the fish that I see back there, it produces a little fluorescent color in there.
It does produce a bit of a fluorescent color, and it brings out the colors of the corals, all the fluorescence that they do, and the fish. As you can see, our fish are really vibrant in this tank.
All right, so is there anything else we should know?
Well, if you're starting out in the hobby, Mo, this is a great way to get started with the VHOs and the power compacts. You can keep a lot of nice corals under that lighting. If you want to aspire to have a tank like Chuck's got, then you'll have to make an investment into the metal halide bulbs for his stony corals that he has.
Okay, so different corals require different types of lighting.
Different corals require different types of lighting. Household lighting or your regular freshwater aquarium lighting just won't work for this type of thing. Again, it's a great way to get started if you try out with the VHOs, make a minimal investment and move up from there.
Well, Marvin, thank you for enlightening us.
My pleasure.
Let's see what's happening back inside. Well, what's going on, Joe?
Hey, welcome back, Mo. What's going on?
Not too much. What are we doing?
All right, as you can see, we've moved on to the second portion of our acclimation process. I've removed both specimens from the bag and placed them in specimen containers in the water in which they had originally come in. The next step is basically acclimating them to Chuck's tank water. So I'll demonstrate two different processes today. The first one being drip acclimation, which I'll use in the goby.
Okay.
So as you can see, I have this length of airline tubing, and basically what I'm going to do is drip water into the specimen container.
Okay.
What I have is a simple valve here that will adjust the flow of water going into the container with the fish. So I'll acclimate it to the tank parameters slowly and at a rate at which the fish will not stress out.
Okay, so you have some kind of siphon going here and just a valve to...
Correct. You could do this as simply as tying a knot in the airline. Of course, you start a siphon first, tie the knot, and adjust the drip.
Okay.
So let's start that now. So this process is basically going to take about 30 to 40 minutes.
So all we're trying to do is equalize the water in the specimen container with the tank water, correct?
That is absolutely right, Mo. Equalize the salinity as well as a number of other chemical parameters.
So we're going to get him used to his new home's water.
Absolutely. Stress him out in the least possible manner.
What are you going to do for the coral?
The next process I'm going to show you is basically, as you can see, I have the coral just sitting here in the water which is shipped in. What we're going to do basically is scoop about a cup at a time of water out of his tank and place it into the specimen container.
Okay. How often are you going to do this?
We're going to do this about every 10 minutes for the next 30 or 40 minutes.
Okay. Another method of just doing the same thing.
Correct.
Okay. Nice color on the coral already.
Yeah, it is great. So let's just start doing that. Basically, we'll be doubling the volume of water of what already exists in the container.
So this whole process is going to take us 30 to 40 minutes?
That's correct, Mo. Just about 30 to 40 minutes.
Gives us some time to talk about what Chuck's got in his tank here. We'll start with the corals and we'll move on to the fish.
Gladly, Mo.
Let's start up in that left corner up there. What's the goldish colored brown mass up there?
Well, if you take a look at the top left-hand side of the tank, you're going to see a gigantic sea anemone, and that is the common name. And if you pay close attention, you're going to see there is a pair of mated Ocellaris clownfish. And if you pan a little closer, you're going to actually be able to see the clutch of eggs that they laid. I believe Chuck had alluded to them earlier in the program. You also have some aquapora. You've got two types of purple aquapora as well as a pink millipora up the top, which is similar to the species of coral that we introduced earlier on in the program. Down the bottom, right on the sand, you can see there is some nice green mushroom corals. And then following that, you see a nice flower anemone, some green star polyps, and again, another type of mushroom on the right that is green.
Okay, and so right in the middle, all those spiky looking things, those are the acroporas.
Correct. Those are small polyp stony corals of the genus Acropora.
Fast growers?
You know, Mo, they are one of the slower growing and, you know, require much more light than most corals. They are beautiful, left generally to the more experienced reef keeper, and as we can tell, Chuck definitely knows what he's doing.
What's that orange mass that's right there?
That is also a small polyp stony coral, Mo. That is a Montipora capricornis.
A nice whirling shape.
Exactly. You'll see a lot of these types of corals, they're plating or whorling growth, and quite fast growing for a small polyp stony coral.
Right below them and down, there's something brownish red that's flowing in the water. What's that?
That would be a Goniopora. That is a large polyp stony coral. You can notice that it's got a calcareous skeleton, but the polyps are elongated. Goniopora, again, are a more advanced coral, and reluctantly some of them are imported to the country, and the requirements are probably lesser known.
Okay, what's right in front of those? Bright purple and kind of a sky blue right in the very front of the tank.
Well, believe it or not, Mo, those are clams.
Those are clams.
Tragnactic clams. They are, I believe, maxima clams. Tragnactic maxima clams. Beautiful, beautiful specimens.
Yeah, they sure are. I love the colors. And behind them, that's just more of the green star polyps?
Yep, you can notice where the butterflies swing by there.
little butterfly fish, there are some green star polyps, yes.
Okay, to the right there, that big brownish gold mass right in there, is that another coral?
That's a soft coral, Mo. That is actually a leather coral, and quite an example of a captive growing leather coral. Those are fairly fast growing corals, and the light requirements are not nearly as much as what you'd expect with small polyp stony.
Okay, up the back behind there, are those more acroporas?
If you follow the rock line up, you'll see that Chuck has placed his small polyp stony corals closer to the light, generally because of the light requirements.
Okay, what's that bright green glowing one?
That is another type of anemone. That is actually a hedonii carpet anemone. And I believe that is yes, that's a Clark's clown that is hosting in that anemone.
Okay, they have a symbiotic relationship between them?
Correct.
Excellent. What is up the top? I've got bright purple and bright pink up there. What are those two?
Well, the bright pink that you see at the top, that looks like a stylophora, another small polyp stony, and the bright purple, it looks like a acropora referred to as a humulus.
Beautiful coral.
Again, he's got some really nice examples and a really well-kept tank.
Let's work our way back from right to left, looking at the fish now. Over on the right-hand side, I've got that bright yellow one. What's that?
That's a yellow tang. You'll catch those in really large schools in and around Hawaii, as well as, you know, in the Indo-Pacific in general.
He's got a multitude of these bright orange fish. You can see them schooling right there. What are those?
Those are actually anthias. Sunburst anthias, I believe.
The black and white with the yellow tail, what are those big ones?
Those are Heniochus. They're in the butterfly fish family.
Okay, beautiful fish. There's our yellow tang again. What's that one right there, the gray with the yellow head?
That would be a nasotang, Mo, and it's actually a female species. The difference being you'll see the males have streamers hanging off the fins and tail.
Huh. What's right in front of, down the bottom, nosing at the bottom of the tank? What's that fish?
That is a copper-banded butterfly, and it's pretty evident that it's copper-colored. A great addition to a reef tank. Great little fish.
And the big blue?
Big blue is a hippotang, also known as a regal tang.
Beautiful, beautiful fish. Ah, the light blue colored one right there with the yellow fin. Very striking.
That is a great fish. What we have there is a powder blue tang. Fairly difficult fish to keep. Tangs in general require a good amount of swimming room. For the most part, tangs in general need 100 gallons or more of swimming space.
Excellent. Thanks for taking us through all this stuff. It sure is a lot to learn here and beautiful stuff to look at. We're here with Rob Tess. Rob is our professor. Rob, you're a chemical engineer. You're a hobbyist too, I presume?
Yes, I am, Mo. Got a 75-gallon tank of my own.
Okay. So where are we going to begin?
Let's start with salinity, Mo, since we are dealing with saltwater after all.
Okay, salinity, we're just talking the salt in the water.
Exactly.
Okay.
And the more salt that's in the water, the more dense it becomes, and the more things float. So that's how we measure it. The simplest way is with a swing arm hydrometer. You fill it with water. It's got a little plastic arm in here that floats depending on the density of the water. The side of the monitor is calibrated, and you just read off your salinity.
What other ways you got?
Most common way for some of the more serious reef keepers is with a refractometer.
Wow, sounds complicated.
No, it's a very simple device actually. It's got a simple glass slide here. You just put a couple of drops of water on it. You close the lid, and you'll just look through this little lens here, and there's a calibrated scale inside, and you see a differentiation on that scale of where your salinity is. It's very simple.
Okay, so where do we go from here?
I'd say we go to pH.
Okay, tell me what pH is.
pH is the acidity or alkalinity of the water.
How do you measure the pH?
Some people choose to use a test kit where you take a sample of the water, put it in a small container, add a chemical that the test kit comes with, and it changes color, and you compare it to a scale, much like one of these here, and that tells you your pH.
Are they fairly accurate?
As accurate as your eye is, Mo.
Ah, so it's a little bit difficult to read?
Yeah, interpretation can be difficult.
What's a better way?
The better way, in my opinion, is to use one of these digital meters. You turn it on, you stick it in the water, and it tells you the pH.
That's it?
That's it. Simple as that.
So what's next, Professor?
Well, next, let's go through the basics of what happens when you first start your tank.
Okay.
There's kind of a biological maturing process. The tank goes through a cycle. And that starts with ammonia. And there are certain bacteria in the water that consume the ammonia and turn it into nitrite. And then there are other bacteria that grow along with that and turn the nitrite into nitrate.
Okay, so that's the nitrogen cycle that we so often hear about?
Exactly.
So what should the beginning reefer do?
The beginning reefer needs to test for these parameters on a routine basis, quite frequently at the start. It takes some number of weeks, depending on the type of system you set up and exactly how you start your tank. It takes some time for the cycle to reach maturity.
Okay, so the first one you mentioned is ammonia.
Right.
Is ammonia a bad chemical, something to worry about?
Yeah, it can be quite toxic to some of the livestock in your tank.
So how do we monitor it?
Well, we use a test kit.
Okay.
And the same thing goes for nitrite and nitrate.
Okay. So eventually those will go to...
0, hopefully.
Okay, and what happens when I reach 0?
Then you're good to go. You can start adding your livestock and filling your tank up and making it look beautiful.
That's when things are safe?
Well, once the tank is mature and reaches its equilibrium, the livestock still continue to consume things like calcium and alkalinity and some of the trace elements. So we need to monitor those on a routine basis.
Okay, so what should we do?
Calcium is a very fundamental component of a reef aquarium. As you know, the skeleton of most coral is comprised mostly of calcium.
Okay.
And a lot of the algae, the hard algae that grow on the glass, and you see the nice purple algae that grow on the rock, those are also calcium-based organisms.
So tell us about alkalinity.
Alkalinity, Mo, is the availability of calcium or calcium carbonate in the water for corals and clams and other organisms to use to build their skeletons and grow.
And how do we monitor this? More test kits?
More test kits.
Okay.
It's a very simple test, actually. It's one of the more simple ones. You're just looking for a color change.
So what else do we test for?
Well, most reefers probably don't test for everything, but as you can see from this wide array of stuff I have here, I pretty much test for everything.
You're into it.
Yeah.
So what should I look for?
Well, there are a lot of other trace elements and small things that you can look for to just generally keep track of the health of your reef. Magnesium is one, strontium, iodine, phosphate. All these things can have some small impact on the health of your reef. Most people don't test for them on a routine basis.
Why not?
Well, because for simplicity, most people use a quality salt mix. They do the routine water changes, and that's enough to keep your tank in general health for the trace elements.
So what else do we test for?
Well, one of the things that could have a pretty significant negative impact on your reef is phosphate, Mo.
Okay.
It's in your tap water. Every time you feed your tank, you're adding phosphates to the tank.
So too much phosphate is a bad thing?
Well, that can lead to algae problems and things that are just unsightly and unhealthy for your tank.
There can't be anything else to test for.
No, Mo, I think that's about all you could test for.
Well, how did Chuck's tank stack up?
Chuck's tank was pretty much as we expected. His temperature was about 79 degrees, his salinity at 1.024, his pH at 8.05, ammonia, nitrite, nitrate, all 0.
Beautiful.
His alkalinity was 2.5, a little bit on the low side. Calcium, 385. We also tested his magnesium, etc. Magnesium was 1325, and we didn't mention it before, but natural seawater is at 1285, and so he's got a pretty good magnesium level in his tank. His phosphates were pretty low at 0.1, iodide 0, strontium at 28, which is a reasonable value, and that's about it.
Okay, Professor. So does Chuck's tank get a passing grade?
A+, Mo.
Beautiful. Thanks for showing us the chemistry, Rob.
No problem.
This is Doug Keung. Doug is our mechanical systems expert. And Doug, how long have you been in the hobby?
It's been about 5 years now.
About 5 years. And you have a tank of your own, right?
That's right. I have a 90-gallon reef tank at home.
Okay. And what can you tell us about Chuck's system?
Well, when I think about the fundamentals of setting up a system, I think about it this way. Imagine you were going to set up a moon base or a space station, and you needed to have everything in there that would keep you alive in this alien environment. Well, what would you need? You'd probably need You need something to breathe. You need something to keep the air circulating inside. You need something to keep you nice and warm. And that would basically keep you alive. It's the same thing with an aquarium. The fish are in an alien environment, and there are basically three components that we need in any aquarium, no matter how big or how small the system is. First thing you need is filtration. You need a way to clean up the waste and circulate that air, or in this case, circulate the water, and keep it nice and clean. So there's filtration, there's circulation. Circulation makes sure that the dirty water gets cleaned, and then the clean water is pumped back into the system again.
Okay.
And finally, you need something to control temperature. You want to make sure that in the winter it doesn't get too cold, and in the summertime it doesn't get too warm.
Okay.
So you need something to control the temperature there. And I have something here to show you on a much smaller scale. This right here is it's about as small a tank as you can get, almost. This is about a 10-gallon tank. And right in here, we can see that for the first thing, we've got circulation. And this is a pump. And a pump's job, basically, is to take the water and shoot it back out through the system, get it cleaned, and then shoot it back into the tank. Keeps the water moving. The other thing it does is it can create some current within the tank. Because, as you know, the ocean is never completely still. There should be a little bit of current within the tank to keep things moving.
Sure.
The fish really like it. The corals like it. So that's circulation.
Okay.
As far as temperature goes, we keep the tank warm by using heaters. And in this case, this is a smaller heater for a smaller tank.
Sure.
For a big tank like Chuck's, you're going to need a much larger heater, or maybe even 2 or 3 heaters.
Okay.
And finally, for filtration, this is what I find the most fascinating thing about it, is in order to keep it filtered, we actually use something from nature. We use something called live rock.
Okay.
And live rock actually comes from the ocean. It's old coral that's basically filled with tons and tons of microscopic bacteria and other animals that feed off of ammonia and the other wastes that the fish produce.
Okay.
And so this is a 300-gallon tank that Chuck has. He's got it filled with 550 pounds of live rock.
Damn, and that was all shipped in?
It was all shipped in. It's really, really amazing. And it keeps that water clean. The bacteria that are in that water depend on the fish waste and the other decaying food and things like that to create food for them to live off of.
Okay.
And they in turn keep the water clean for all the other fish. So it's a great ecosystem.
Is that the only filtration he's got going?
He's got another form of filtration
What's
called
that?
a protein skimmer.
Okay.
And you can see it right in the back here. A protein skimmer, basically, its job is to remove a lot of the excess organic waste before it even gets to the live rock in the system.
All right.
If you've ever been walking on the beach, you know the sea foam that gets kicked up on the beach, a lot of the time it looks kind of scummy and it's sort of brownish.
Oh, sure, I know that nasty stuff.
That's sort of nature's way of skimming the ocean.
Okay.
And we do something similar here. We have a pump that actually pumps water into this protein skimmer, and then there are millions of tiny little bubbles that move up through the water. And as the bubbles move through that column of water, they carry with them a lot of excess organic wastes and undissolved solids, and it collects up the top in a collection dish. It makes this really nasty greenish brown stuff that needs to be emptied from time to time. But everything you empty out of that dish is stuff that's not in your tank anymore.
Okay, so you're just taking vast amounts of water, mixing them with air, and then putting the clean stuff back in the tank?
That's right. That's exactly what you're doing.
Great.
Now, this is a very basic tank. For a tank that's as large as Chuck's tank here, Chuck actually has 2 pumps providing the circulation.
Okay.
He's got 2 Iwaki MD RLT 100 pumps. And these are very big pumps.
Mm-hmm.
These pumps will pump about 2,000 gallons per hour through the system. How do you determine how large a pump you need? Depends on the size of the tank.
Okay.
Generally, it's a good idea to pump about 10 to 12 times the volume of water through your tank every hour. So for Chuck's tank this size, it means some pretty large pumps. It also makes a difference how far the pump has to work. In Chuck's case, he's got his pump located right underneath his tank. If you had a tank where the pump was located down in the basement and you were pumping it up 10 feet into your tank, you'd probably need a pump that's going to have greater pressure so that you can keep that volume going, keep the water circulating in your tank.
That makes sense.
He's got something else under here called a sump. And a sump basically is just a big reservoir of water. And it sits underneath the tank. And in this case, it's a big Rubbermaid 30-gallon container.
Okay.
And that's where the pump sits. That's where he can add a lot of things to the water to keep the water, keep the chemistry of the water correct.
Okay.
And the sump is very helpful. It helps keep all that stuff out of sight.
Oh, that's nice.
You can also stick your heaters right in the sump as well, and that keeps it nice and warm.
Beautiful.
So this really is a wonderful system, and it does a great job of